Until recently, video game publishers were given free rein to pursue profits with total impunity in an environment devoid of oversight or regulation. Now, of course, I am directing this commentary towards the most devious of those monetization schemes, loot boxes, which according to historical sources first appeared in 2004 and have morphed and evolved since then. And this leads me to this recent article published in The Guardian entitled, "UK Could Class Loot Boxes as Gambling to Protect Children. Ministers Call for Evidence on Video Games Such as FIFA that Charge Money for Rewards." Adding a bit of history before we dive into this Guardian article. And these gambling-style mechanics have been around for well over a decade, and gamers have been pushing back against these schemes for that same period of time, while this struggle has only garnered heightened media attention in the last 3 years, which in turn has pushed this topic into the spotlight of mainstream society and government. Now, society at large was either naive or complicit to these unchecked mechanics, and only once the whispers grew to shouts was this struggle brought to light. Referencing back to the Guardian article, loot boxes, a controversial element of video games, could be reclassified as gambling products over concern that they are training children to gamble. I agree with this statement. The article continues on. Their value to the video games industry has been estimated at £23 billion a year and rising, thanks to revenues that keep rolling in even after the initial purchase of the game. And this is the trend that has been allowed to permeate throughout games unchecked for years. Publishers who used to spend large amounts of money on a title to create a quality product that would provide gamers untold hours of entertainment have now shifted to mediocre creations that are chock full of nickel and dime schemes to extract huge profits out of gamers. Why spend $80 million to create a masterpiece that could net you $400 million in sales when you could spend just $25 million on the creation of a game, slam it full of gambling-style loot boxes and net a profit of $500 million? Back to the Guardian article, and this portion is referencing loot boxes specifically. Although they involve an element of chance, they are not covered by existing gambling legislation, and therefore not regulated by the Gambling Commission because the items won are not considered to have monetary value. However, the DCMS Select Committee heard evidence last year that loot box winnings can be easily exchanged for cash on third-party websites and that their use by game developers was likely to, quote, facilitate profiting from problem gamblers. In a subsequent report, the influential committee advised that they should be considered gambling products. And herein lies the issue with these loot boxes, as publishers and a large portion of society have both used the same argument. They do use real money to purchase these boxes, but since they do not reward you with anything of monetary value, they aren't really gambling and are therefore not subject to gambling laws. And while this is technically true, this type of argument doesn't justify the use of loot boxes, and one could argue that it actually makes them even more nefarious, since they require real money to purchase, operate on chance-based mechanics that could be easily manipulated on the back end since there is no oversight, and they reward you with nothing but worthless items to be used in-game. Again, quoting from the article, they are a virtually speculative commodity that only help to normalize and encourage young people to take a chance, said the Labour MP Carolyn Harris, who chairs a cross-party group of MPs investigating gambling-related harm. All too often, this will lead to youngsters developing an addiction to gambling. And to finish with this Guardian article, research by academics at the University of York published last year that loot boxes are increasingly prevalent, featuring in about 71% of the most popular titles on the gaming portal Steam, compared with just 4% a decade ago. Any change to how loot boxes are regulated could feature in a broader overhaul of gambling legislation, which was drawn up by Labour in 2005 and has been labeled unfit for the digital age by campaigners. So what you see here, and this is the case time and time again, is that despite the good intentions and the need for regulation, there is another, extremely well-funded and connected force that is lobbying against these regulations while representing the interest of the game publishers. We've all seen this now famous clip of a representative for Electronic Arts defending the use of loot boxes at an ethics hearing in the UK.
Consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games. Kerry?
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was
whatever term you wish to apply to them. Do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics.
And from just viewing this clip, it is clear that they will do and say whatever is necessary to frame the topic in such a way that it works in their best interests. Surprise mechanics? Come on, EA. What the? In 2018, Belgium was the first country to see through the attempted misdirection and take legislative action to ban loot boxes. Now, although they were willing to look the other way with titles rank with loot boxes such as FIFA, Call of Duty, and Apex Legends, and it finally took the virtual slot machine of Star Wars Battlefront 2 to finally push them over the edge. In an attempt to appease the pitchfork-waving hordes, EA took to Reddit, calling microtransactions a way to provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking different heroes. Now, to say that this attempt to control the narrative backfired would be a gross misuse of the English language, as EA's post became the most downvoted in Reddit's history and has since been locked by the Star Wars Battlefront mods. In the past few years, many countries including Japan, Sweden, Australia, and yes, even the United States have had their own skirmishes with the gaming industry and loot box mechanics. In mid-2019, Senator Josh Hawley introduced legislation in the U.S. to prohibit the sale of loot boxes in games targeted at children under the age of 18. Quote, "Social media and video games prey on user addiction, siphoning our kids' attention from the real world and extracting profits from fostering compulsive habits. No matter this business model's advantages to the tech industry, one thing is clear: there is no excuse for exploiting children through such practices. Pay-to-win mechanics in games targeted at minors would also be outlawed under this legislation. This includes progression systems that encourage people to spend money to advance through a game's content at a faster pace." Again quoting, "When a game is designed for kids, game developers shouldn't be allowed to monetize addiction." Now, to my knowledge, these initial attempts to install regulation for these tactics in the US has not been enacted, but as I said, these were the initial skirmishes, and I anticipate much larger battles in the future. Switching gears, and this next portion of the commentary is going to take a more personal tone. In July 2017, before gamers had truly united in their public outcry against these schemes, I published a video concerning the installation of RNG gambling-style loot boxes in The Division, a Ubisoft title that I had covered since its launch the previous year. Now, there were several factors that compelled me to join a few other like-minded members of that community, many of them personal, but to say that we were viewed as outsiders would be a gross understatement. I don't need to go into the details about the particulars of that situation, but we'll include a link to that video in the description below in case you want to view it later. But trust me when I say that the public backlash that our small group of activists received was truly epic. We were treated as social pariahs, and to this day, I am still shocked at the level of vitriol that was flung in our direction. Now, although the comment section for the video looks and feels quite professional, all the members of this group received public ridicule, and the private messages I received were some of the most alarming and disgusting use of grammar I have witnessed. Looking back on that campaign, and we weren't trying to burn the IP to the ground, but rather we were taking a stance against a mechanic that we felt should not be installed into the game we enjoyed, especially after public statements from Ubisoft employees prior to the game launching saying that the title would never use third-party or other monetization models in the game. Next month will mark the 3rd anniversary of that upload, and looking back on that time and that movement that we all participated in, and it is truly vindicating to see that we were on the right side of history. Okay, back to the present and the broader issue, and what has been made clear is the fact that the question of the ethics and morality of loot boxes has now transcended from a video game only issue to a much broader social topic. Publishers like EA and many others are now continually under scrutiny for these previously unchecked cash grabs, with entire countries either banning them outright or beginning the process of evaluation. Ultimately, Belgium banning loot boxes from all games sold in their country will not produce a huge shortfall in publisher profits. But if the UK were to follow suit, now this could inflict a severe financial penalty against an industry that has long been given carte blanche over a profit stream that preys on human vices. I think this is a good place to wrap this one up, and as always, I look forward to reading your feedback in the comment section below. We are rapidly approaching 50,000 subs, and I would like to remind you that if you like this style of content in your lives, please take just a moment to hit the sub button and ring the bell to never miss a future upload notification from my YouTube channel. If you liked the video, rate it with a thumbs up, if not with a thumbs down. If you want to support my full-time content creation outside of YouTube, please look in the video description for links to my Patreon and merchandise store. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter for all my latest thoughts concerning most things gaming related, and until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.